My name is Grace. I'm 47, and I hadn't smiled genuinely in 3 years. Not since Daniel left and took half of everything, including my confidence. That morning, the cafe was louder than usual. I had taken my usual spot near the window, nursing a cheap coffee with too much sugar. Rain tapped softly against the glass, the sky as gray as my spirit. I had my sketch pad open, doodling nonsense just to keep my hands busy. "Excuse me," a deep voice said, cutting through the noise. "Mind if I sit? There's nowhere else?" I looked up, tall, clean-cut, handsome in a quiet way. Maybe late 40s. He wore a simple sweater and jeans, nothing fancy, but there was something contained about him, like a man who'd lived too much and spoken too little. "Go ahead," I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. He smiled, polite but distant, and sat with a sigh, setting down his cappuccino. For a few minutes, we said nothing. Just two strangers surviving a rainy morning. Then he asked, "What are you drawing?" I hesitated. "Nothing, just shapes." He leaned forward. "They look like broken wings." I blinked. No one had ever noticed that. Something shifted in the air. Small, but they're real. I didn't know his name, and he didn't ask for mine. But I felt seen for the first time in years, and I had no idea he was about to change my life in ways I couldn't imagine. The cafe was a quiet pocket in a loud world, worn wood floors, chipped mugs, soft jazz playing overhead. I came here every Thursday morning since I started working part-time at the local library. It was the only day I allowed myself to just sit and exist. He didn't speak much, but I noticed things. The way he stirred his coffee 3 times, counterclockwise. How he looked out the window as if waiting for someone, or something, to appear. After a while, he said, "My name's Michael." "Grace." He smiled. "Nice name." He didn't flirt. He didn't ask for my number. He just sat, as if the silence between us meant something. Over the next few weeks, Michael kept showing up, not always on Thursdays. Sometimes I'd find him already there, holding a seat. Other times, we arrived minutes apart, as if drawn by the same invisible thread. I learned he lived outside town, that he liked lemon muffins, that he once taught music. I never saw a wedding ring, never heard him mention a wife. But one morning, a small voice broke the rhythm. "Daddy, I want the pink cookie." A little girl, no more than 5, tugged at his hand. Big green eyes, curly hair, and pigtails. She looked just like him. Michael crouched beside her. "Not before breakfast, Rosie. Remember our deal?" She pouted. "You promised." He glanced at me, almost embarrassed. "This is Rosie." I smiled. "She's beautiful." Rosie stared. "Are you my daddy's friend?" Michael hesitated. "She's someone kind who shares her table." I laughed. "That's one way to put it." But inside, something tugged. I hadn't held a child's hand in years, and the way he looked at her, gentle, tired, full of love, I hadn't felt that kind of gaze in even longer. It was a Saturday morning when everything began to shift. Michael arrived late. His shirt was wrinkled, hair damp like he'd rushed out in a storm. Rosie wasn't with him. He looked off. "You okay?" I asked. He sat down, rubbing his forehead. "Rough week." "Rosie's sick." He shook his head. "Number just dealing with things." I didn't press. I knew better than to pry. But his silence felt heavier than usual. Then he spoke, almost too softly. "Her mother walked out 2 years ago. No goodbye, no warning, just gone." My breath caught. She left a note. Said she wasn't made for motherhood. Said I'd be better off. He scoffed. "Better off?" He didn't cry. but I saw it in the way his hands trembled as he sipped his coffee. She left her daughter, I whispered. She left both of us, he said. But Rosie doesn't know the whole story. She thinks Mom's just busy. I wanted to reach across the table, to hold his hand. But I didn't. Not yet. I know what it's like, I said instead, to be left behind. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. There was recognition there, the quiet bond of people who had survived abandonment. Then something changed in him. He leaned back and said, "Listen, I need to ask you something strange." I tensed. "I have a meeting, an important one, and Rosie's sitter just quit." He paused. "Would you watch her? Just for a couple hours?" It was impulsive. It was risky. But I said yes, and I had no idea that one simple yes would pull me into a world I never expected. A world of secrets, investment portfolios, lawyers, and a family legacy tangled in silence. Michael's meeting ran longer than expected. Rosie and I spent the afternoon at the park, watching ducks and sharing a grilled cheese sandwich. She held my hand like we'd known each other forever. When Michael finally returned, breathless and apologetic, he looked at us, me holding Rosie's tiny jacket, her head on my shoulder, and froze. "I didn't expect," he murmured. Rosie stirred. "Daddy, Grace is nice. Can she come again?" He looked torn, grateful, but conflicted. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. "Grace, it's Michael. I owe you more than thanks." His voice was different, softer, honest. I wasn't just at a meeting. It was a negotiation for something big. I've kept that side of my life hidden, but maybe I shouldn't. I listened in silence as he told me the truth. He wasn't just a music teacher. He was a former investment strategist, made millions before 40. Retired early after a scandal involving his business partner. Cleared his name, but not his heart. He walked away from the money, but the money didn't walk away from him. "I've been hiding," he said, "not just from the world, but from who I was." I felt a chill. My hands clenched. "Why me?" I asked. "Why tell me this?" "Because you looked at me like I was a man, not a dollar sign, not a failure, just a man." I didn't sleep much that night. Something about the way he spoke, the sadness, the vulnerability, unlocked something in me I thought I'd buried. We were two people carrying invisible weights. And now, it seemed we were starting to help each other carry them. The next time I saw Michael, he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, elegant, cold, with piercing eyes and a voice like glass. "Grace," he said carefully, "this is Vanessa, Rosie's mother." I froze. She extended her hand like we were meeting at a fundraiser. "I heard you've been spending time with my daughter." I couldn't find words, only questions. Michael's jaw tightened. "She showed up yesterday. No warning." Vanessa smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I've reconsidered my rights. Rosie needs her mother." I looked at Michael. He was pale, angry. "She left Grace. She abandoned Rosie. Now she's back, and she wants custody." My legs felt weak. Later that night, Michael came to the cafe. He sat across from me, hands shaking. "She doesn't want Rosie. She wants leverage. She found out I've been negotiating a return to the market. A major firm wants me back. The contract's massive." He looked at me, eyes full of pain. "She thinks she's entitled to half of everything again, including Rosie." I was speechless. Then he whispered, "She has a lawyer. And unless I fight her, she could win." The cafe felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were pressing in. Do you love your daughter? I asked. With everything I am. Then fight. Don't let her turn Rosie into a trophy. Michael looked at me, really looked. And in that moment, I saw it. The war he was ready to start. Not for money, not for pride, but for love. I'm going to need help, he said. I'm not going anywhere, I replied. And I meant it. Even if it meant walking straight into a storm I wasn't prepared for. The legal battle started quietly, but quickly turned brutal. Vanessa filed motions with chilling precision. She claimed abandonment, instability, even emotional neglect. Lies stacked on paper like weapons. Michael barely slept. I saw it in his face, in the way his hands trembled while tying Rosie's shoes. She's poisoning everything, he whispered, even Rosie's memories. One evening, as Rosie played with blocks in the corner of my living room, she looked up and asked, "Why does Mommy say you're bad?" My throat closed. I knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, sometimes grown-ups say hurtful things when they're scared." She tilted her head. "Is Daddy scared too?" I nodded. "Yes, baby, but not of you." Rosie leaned into my arms and whispered, "I don't want to leave you." That night, I told Michael everything. He buried his face in his hands. "She's using our daughter like currency." "You said it yourself," I reminded him. "The only thing worth fighting for is Rosie." We hired a new attorney, tough, relentless, and principled. She believed us, but Vanessa's side came armed with old photos, twisted emails, and frozen accounts. And then came the letter, typed official. The family trust, Michael's last untouched wealth, was frozen. Vanessa's legal team argued that Rosie's welfare depended on control of her financial future. I saw Michael break that night. "They're turning my daughter into a transaction," he said, slamming the papers on my kitchen table. "This isn't a fight. It's a war." Then I said something I hadn't planned, something that came from somewhere deep. "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, but he came that we may have life and have it more abundantly." Michael stared at me. I continued, voice shaking. "This isn't the end, it's the middle." He reached out, took my hand. "Then don't let go. I need you. I'm right here." And I was. The weeks that followed were relentless. Court dates, depositions, accusations. But through it all, something stronger began to grow. Michael changed. He started waking up early, making Rosie's breakfast with silly pancake faces. He began journaling, praying, sometimes out loud, sometimes just silently, as he stood by the window. One morning, as he walked Rosie to school, he turned to me and said, "I used to think being rich meant control. Now I know it means responsibility." I nodded. "You're already wealthier than most. You just forgot." He smiled. "I'm starting to remember." I changed too. For the first time in years, I stopped sketching broken wings. I drew hands holding each other, a child on a father's shoulders, a woman standing strong beside them. I started feeling something I thought I'd buried. Hope. Rosie began calling me Gracie. It started by accident, but stuck. At night, when Michael read to her, she'd always save a spot beside her. "Gracie has to hear too." At one point, Michael whispered, "You've become home for her." It made me cry, not loud sobs, just silent tears that only come when something is finally healing. The final hearing approached. Vanessa's team grew more aggressive. They tried painting me as unstable, financially desperate, emotionally involved. "Let them try," I told Michael. "I have nothing to hide." And neither did he. We were no longer hiding from the past. We were building something real, something no court could erase. The night before the hearing, Michael stood beside me on my porch. He looked out at the dark sky and said quietly, "Whatever happens tomorrow, thank you." I placed my hand over his heart. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. And deep down, we both knew it. The courtroom felt colder than I expected. Michael wore a dark suit, clean shave, eyes steady. I sat 2 rows behind him, heart pounding like a drum. Vanessa arrived late, her lawyer smug beside her. She wore elegance like armor, tailored, polished, rehearsed. Rosie wasn't there. That was the hardest part. The judge, a woman in her 60s with tired eyes, reviewed both cases. Vanessa's side leaned heavily on financial security, past instability, and legal loopholes from their former marriage contract. Michael's side focused on consistency, emotional bonds, and character witnesses, including me. They called me to the stand. "Ms. Grace, what is your relationship to the child?" "I'm her friend," I said, voice clear, "and someone she trusts." "And to Mr. Michael?" I paused. "He's someone who has changed, who chose to become the father Rosie needs, not just the one she had." Vanessa's lawyer tried to twist my words, but I stayed calm. My truth was clean, solid. When Michael took the stand, something unexpected happened. He didn't argue. He confessed. "I used to hide behind wealth," he said, "but Grace reminded me what matters. My daughter isn't a burden. She's a miracle. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving I deserve her." The courtroom was silent. Then he added, "If the court believes Vanessa is better suited, I'll accept it. But I beg you, don't make this decision based on money. Make it for Rosie." Tears welled in my eyes. He wasn't fighting with pride anymore. He was surrendering with love. The judge closed her notes. "I'll render my decision tomorrow." Outside, it started to rain. Michael turned to me. "Win or lose, I'm grateful. You gave me back my faith." I held his hand. "And you gave me back my heart." The next morning, the courtroom was silent, heavy with tension, as if everyone's breath was being held at once. The judge entered, eyes calm but unreadable. Michael sat upright, Rosie's drawing folded in his hand. I sat behind him, my fingers clenched tight. Vanessa didn't look at him, or at me, just at the judge. Then came the ruling. This court has reviewed the claims of both parties. While Vanessa James has demonstrated financial stability, Mr. Michael James has shown something far greater: unwavering presence. She paused. "Rosie is not a portfolio. She is a child who needs not just provision, but protection, love, and consistency." Michael exhaled sharply. "Custody will remain solely with Mr. James." There was a faint gasp from Vanessa's side. I felt my whole body shake. Relief, gratitude, overwhelming joy. Vanessa stood abruptly. "You'll regret this," she muttered under her breath, and stormed out, her lawyer trailing behind her. Michael turned to me, eyes wet. "I don't know how to thank you," he whispered. "You already have," I said. Rosie ran into the courtroom minutes later, her arms flung wide. "Daddy!" He knelt, scooping her up, holding her like he'd never let go again. Then she turned to me. "Gracie, can we go get pancakes?" Michael laughed, eyes still misty. "Anything you want, Peanut." As we walked out of the courthouse, hand in hand, I realized something I hadn't dared hope for. I wasn't just part of their story. I was part of their future. And somehow, they'd become part of mine. It's been 8 months since that morning in court. The cafe where it all began is still there. We go every Saturday now. Me, Michael, and Rosie. She insists we always sit by the window. She brings crayons instead of blocks these days. She draws houses, families, smiling suns. Michael went back to the investment world, but on his own terms. He teaches part-time now too, helping people over 50 understand how to manage money, avoid bad loans, and use their savings wisely. You don't need to be rich, he always says. You need to be free. As for me, I finally opened my own small studio. I sell sketches now, real ones, not broken wings. Rosie insisted the first drawing I hung be the one she made after the court decision. A sun, two tall stick figures, and one smaller one in the middle. On the bottom, in shaky handwriting, our family. Michael and I aren't married. Not yet. But last week, he took my hand on the porch and said, I want to grow old with you, Grace, even if all we ever have is what we already found. I smiled. That's already more than I ever prayed for. Because sometimes life doesn't give you what you expect. Sometimes it gives you something better. Not wealth, not ease, but love that stays, faith that rebuilds, and a table in a crowded cafe where a single decision, one simple yes, becomes the beginning of everything.